Welcome to SEC Sports Roundtable. This is your host, Shane Bailey. We're going to kick things off right away and make some introductions. Sorry for the lack of podcasts last week, but with getting back in the holidays and the work week and everything. What did I miss there? Sorry for the clicking. Clicking the pen for those that can't see that. Sorry about that. I'll put the pen down. But sorry for the delay there. We had some work issues and some scheduling conflicts. We just weren't able to get it out on a regular weekly basis, so we're getting it out as close as possible. So thanks for bearing with us, and we're going to get right into things and say welcome, Drew.
Thank you, Shane. Sorry, the layoff. I had to get my New Year's resolutions completed in the first week, try to get those done. So
that's Drew Young. I'll give a last name there. And so you sit down and make some goal settings for your life? And
yeah, you got to make them easy so you can tackle them quick. I think that's the goal. Make them super attainable. That way you're never disappointed, Shane.
There we go. Like go to McDonald's and eat, a couple cheeseburgers.
Yeah, that could be it. Something like that.
Goal complete.
Mm-hmm.
Blair Smiley, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. I'm here.
You're here.
Been a while.
Wearing that Mississippi State hat proudly today.
That's right. Unfortunately,
such a big game yesterday.
They played yesterday?
Yeah. Shut up.
Football season's over, but basketball in the SEC did kick off yesterday. We will talk about some of that stuff as we get moving into the podcast. We'll talk some SEC basketball, but really what's gone down in the SEC the last couple weeks is it's been bowl season, and we're going to not necessarily go in any particular order, but just kind of talk about some of the highlights in the games. We're a day away from the BCS National Championship game, so there's no sense in saying Aaron Murray passed for X number of yards and his completion percentage, and they blew that one. We can say that, but there's no need to go into the in-depth coverage that we normally do on a weekly basis of the games that have already occurred. So we're just going to kind of kick things off and talk a little bowl action and talk about some of the highlights and things that we liked from the bowl season and go about it that way. Drew, what stood out? What bowl game stood out the best for you?
Well, unfortunately, I thought this was just a wonderful bowl season. Unfortunately for the SEC and for our podcast, I don't think that the majority of the great games were in the SEC. A lot of blowouts and a lot of sloppy games. I guess the game that I would say was the closest, the best game was that Georgia Michigan State game because it went to overtime. Now that's what's weird about that, and we discussed this a little before. Was I don't think that was a great game to watch. It just had a good ending. And by good ending, I think Mark Richt absolutely blew that game.
Yes.
I've never seen, you always hear the adage, play to win, don't play, not to lose. That was what I heard that a lot with Phil Fulmer back in the day. But I think that's exactly what he did. They got I think they 18, 19 point lead, something like that, and just sat on it and sat on it and sat on it. And Michigan State just kept on, coming back. And Michigan State's a quality team. They were a good team this year. They came back and played Wisconsin tough, beat them. I think they beat them twice this year.
Yeah, and I mean, just to add to that, what stuck out to me in that was, and I know a lot of times it comes back to Mississippi State for me, but if y'all remember when Mississippi State played La Tech this year, got really conservative the last 6 minutes of the ball game. Ralph had turned the ball over a little bit, and so we kind of limped in and basically took a knee to go into overtime against La Tech. And they got the ball first, and we actually were able to stop them, got a turnover, and so we got the ball and only needed to score, and that's when Mullen was aggressive, and first play he actually throws a 25-yard wheel route for a touchdown with Ralph, and his comments after the game were simply that that's not a time and a place where you can actually get conservative. You got to be aggressive in overtime, and you got to take it straight to them, and that's what he told his team. So I thought kneeling, especially with a kid in Blair Walsh, who coming into the year was All-American caliber kicker, and had really struggled this year, missed 12 kicks, and there wasn't a chip shot. It was like 37 yards, wasn't it? Or 40? No, 42.
42. He was on the state of the 25. Yeah. Why even run the first play?
And they did it on third down. I just didn't understand that. And then once that obviously happened, went into two more. But I think they lost it right there.
I want to do a quick question and answer session. Blair, I'll ask you this. You're a good guest on here. You've been here quite a while. You watch a lot of football, right?
Yes.
What's the reason that you would kick the ball on third down?
What is the reason?
Yeah, what's the reasoning behind
just
kicking
in
on third
case you
down?
have a bobble snap or whatever.
Exactly right. How many times have you seen a bobbled snap on third down where they were able to cover it and then kick the next one?
I mean,
I've never seen it.
Well, here's a better answer to that. A bobbled snap that's going to take the ball to make it a 50-yard plus snap.
Sure.
Yeah.
I would rather have a 50-yarder than not one at all. But I'm telling you, I've watched a million football games. I've seen teams kick it on third down a million times. I have never seen a bobbled snap. I've never seen it.
Yeah, but also, you can ask the question: is coach paranoid?
Yeah,
I mean, there's that scenario out there. Yeah, it just didn't make sense to do it then at a 42-yarder. That if even you made a mistake, you weren't losing the game. The worst case scenario, you're going back into double overtime. So in that scenario,
they intercepted on
the first overtime.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't understand why did you? I mean, if you're going to go conservative, let's run the ball 3 straight times and get to a 37-yard field goal, and then if it's fourth down, you can kind of go a little bit, but to kick it from there just didn't make any sense whatsoever.
Well, sure. I mean, and even worse, they run on first down. They run on first down and get 3 or 4 yards. That's fine. Second down, do they try to get more yards? Yeah. No, they centered the ball. They just centered it
and lost
3 yards back to the original line of scrimmage. So I thought that was that game's completely on Mark Richt. I thought it was bad coaching. I'm not gonna say he's a bad coach. He's better than me. I think did a good job this season, but yeah, I just don't think he did he didn't play to win. Not even that. He didn't have to play that hard to try to win.
That happened well before the first overtime. I mean, they changed their play calling and their ability to run the ball and up and down the field well into the second half. They basically were playing, like you said, to keep the lead as opposed to, keep your foot on the throttle and keep doing what got you there. They completely changed that and changed directions.
I know we talk about the SEC on this blog, but the Golston kid for Michigan State, which I haven't watched a lot of Michigan State games. I mean, just watched that Wisconsin game, but I don't even think he was actually playing in that one game earlier in the year where they lost on the Hail Mary. That dude's an animal. I mean, he's like 6'7", and I mean, he's got to have like 4% body fat. I mean, he just destroyed, which was a pretty good offensive line for Georgia. But he was the real deal. Any
relation to the other Golston, the Vernon Golston playing?
I have no
idea. Beyond that, I guess another. I mean, it's so hard to say what I was impressed with Auburn. I thought Auburn played really well, and they stuck it to Virginia. And this is a kind of. I mean, I predicted that Auburn would do pretty well. I thought they would win this game, but they did more than just win the game. I mean, they just throttled them.
Yeah, and you would think with the whole offensive coordinator's deal, and I thought Malzahn did a good job, even though he's kind of splitting duties there, and I think he's coaching tonight, right? Yeah, he's coaching Arkansas State.
Is he coaching Arkansas State tonight?
They were saying that in the telecast, is that he was the offensive coordinator for Auburn, and a week later he was going to be coaching Arkansas State in the bowl game. So
wow,
yeah, because Hugh Freeze is not doing anything. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I thought he did a really good job, and Trey Mason did well. They have the quarterback that gets hurt early in the game, and they run kind of a 2 quarterback deal with Trotter and the other kid,
and
Frazier.
You saw Malzahn pull out every play that he could have imagined. They were just running any trick play or specialty play that they had in their arsenal. He was pulling it out that game, and it was a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean that was a good I think shot of the SEC versus a pretty weak ACC because Auburn was down the list on the SEC, and Virginia, they had a game at home against Virginia Tech to go to the championship game and kind of got blown away, but they had a successful year, 8 wins, and but they really couldn't match the athleticism of Auburn, that's for sure.
Have y'all heard the rumor, and do you think it has legs? The whole Michael Dyer.
It's already done.
It's done.
He's already been released.
I know he's being released, but he's going. So Arkansas State going to follow Malzahn?
I don't know if that's supposedly that's where he's going to go. They were saying that in I think Central Arkansas or something like that because it's where he's from. But I know it's kind of an interesting deal because I mean, what do you think? I mean, Malzahn's on that staff. I mean, I know the kid's just an unbelievable talent, but I mean, he was suspended for some reason, for violation of team rules. So it would be interesting to take him and kind of go with him. But I guess maybe getting back in an Arkansas setting and getting him a little bit closer to home might be a new little deal for him. Have
either of y'all seen the? It's a YouTube video out there. It's Gus Malzahn's wife.
Yes.
And now that's if I watched that and she said that he's she spoke directly about Michael Dyer and said that he was had an attitude, but just a good kid. And it just seemed like almost that they had a relationship. And I'm not saying that Gus Malzahn and his wife and Michael Dyer had a relationship, but I'm saying that they were close and he was over at their house and
because they're Arkansas guys. He went and I mean that's why. I mean if you look at Auburn the last 2 years or the last 3 years in their recruiting, I mean they got the Kyle Frazier kid, and they laid right on that, the quarterback. Mm-hmm. I mean he's from Arkansas. I mean they went in and the last 3 years gotten the top player in Arkansas to come to Auburn. So Malzahn's still got a little bit of pull there. So it might be an opportunity for him to kind of get a second chance and new lease on life, so to speak.
And generally you hear rumors and things about what actually happened for him to, get suspended, but I haven't heard anything as to what the rumors are, what might have occurred behind the scenes.
I think he obviously broke some. What I'm thinking, I don't know this, but I have actually heard that he had a pretty bad attitude. Number one, which generally doesn't get you kicked off the team, but I think it had to do something with probably a failed drug test or something to that effect, or something like that ended up kind of drawing the straw. But we haven't got any confirmation whatsoever.
Where I was going to go with that was that, I mean, the fact that maybe he just did not see eye to eye with the coach at Auburn, and because the relationship that he might have with Malzahn, that this, he can control that attitude, and Malzahn understands how to coach Dyer. He might do perfectly well over there. It would be a huge win for Arkansas State because they were already a great team. I mean, for the division they're in.
He won't do well in the Sun Belt at all.
No. What was the kid up at Western that was breaking all kinds of records?
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be a crazy year in the Sun Belt if he does get the ability to go there next year.
Yeah, and he'll have to sit out a year, right?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm assuming
is he a sophomore?
Yeah, he's a true sophomore, so he'll sit out a year just like a red shirt and have 2 years to play. So,
which is always surprising to me, somebody that talented that's going to choose to sit out a year. You always think of these running backs as good as he is that would just play 3 years and go pro, and now that he's going to prolong that, I don't know. That's strange. But I guess if he don't want to play for that team, then he don't want to play for Auburn.
But I mean, if he sets out a year, and would he not still be able to go out after one more year?
Yeah.
So I mean, think about from a running back standpoint, the abuse they take. Setting out a year and really not hurting your stock any in the NFL, saving those legs. I mean, that might be in the long run good for Dyer.
Shane, that's a very, 30-year-old banker.
I'm glad you said 30s as opposed to 40, but
you're in your 30s, right?
Barely.
Yeah, you're still in your 30s. So that's a very 30-year-old banker type statement that's going to look at those as opposed to a 19-year-old kid. So. Yeah. Yeah,
hopefully he's got some 30-year-old bankers that are giving him some advice like that, though.
Probably does. He's probably on the payroll with somebody.
It is
Auburn.
He's on the payroll of the SEC Sports Roundtable.
Yeah, exactly. I can assure you that'd be a no violation. There's limited funding.
We run in the negative funding here. But what really, if I was upset about anything over the bowl season, aside from the fact that I do agree with you that some of the games outside the SEC were a little more exciting to watch than the SEC games, was the fact that the January 2nd, you had 3 SEC teams playing at the same exact time. And I know that some of this was, you scheduled it well in advance, but you knew that SEC teams were going to be slotted for those bowl positions. Why do you do that when all it's doing is cannibalizing your viewership?
I don't have a good answer for that.
It's just that's just stupidity, really. I mean, because it was all three were on the ABC family of networks, right?
Yeah. And it was the same way last year because I remember watching the Gator Bowl and knowing that I couldn't watch the other two games because I wasn't turning it away from state at the time. So,
am I wrong?
Yeah.
I mean, when the ABC,
ESPN,
and ESPN too.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, they've done a few things to change that. I mean, they used to have the Cotton Bowl playing the very first game. I mean, that used to be like a 10:30 10:30 kickoff here at Central Time. So they've moved that. They still want that January 1st day. I know it was January 2nd this year. They want it to be the big day with most of the games. And
I'm fine with that. But stagger those starts so they don't all start at 12 o'clock Eastern. Start one at 11 o'clock.
I don't know why you start. I'd start one at 9. I mean, just do something different.
I think what actually happens is I think if in that scenario, because I think the Sugar Bowl was supposed to be that. Did it end up being that night? It was not that night, or was it that night? It was the Rose Bowl and Fiesta Bowl.
Rose Bowl and Fiesta, and the Sugar Bowl was
on
the following,
evening.
the third.
Okay.
But I mean, if they're afraid they're going to step on people wanting to watch the Rose Bowl parade, let's be real. Those folks aren't watching football anyways. I mean, I'm recording that for my 4-year-old daughter to watch, not because I want to watch flowered parade floats walk down the road. I mean,
hey.
Take it easy on the floors.
People worked hard on those floats.
They did, and it's immaculate. I'm not taking anything away from that, but that's not what I would choose to watch if I had the opportunity to watch a bowl game at 11 o'clock in the morning or 10:30 or what. Even if you staggered it a little bit, you're able to get more because of the way the halftimes flow, and halftimes during these bowl games last an hour.
You think they could stagger it a little bit if they could?
I think that those BCS games are so much money involved with them. They don't want any other game competing with them, and other than unless you start the games at 7 o'clock in the morning, you have to get them all done by the time the Rose Bowl kicks off, and was a 3:30 kickoff this year Central Time. So I think that's the reason you do it. You don't want to. I don't know that there's a better answer. The fact that I think you're going to have on that January 1st, you're going to have quite a few games being played. It just so happens to be that they're all SEC. It stinks for SEC for fans that just want to watch SEC football.
Well, they need to do something about that. And
if it makes you feel any better, I don't think any of those games were really that exciting. So the Ohio State Florida game, Florida, the way they played defense and special teams, that block kick, that's the best block kick I've ever seen. I mean, he blocked it just with his whole body, picked it up and scored. I was impressed by Florida's defense and special teams. I thought they played great, and that game went the way I predicted it would go, and picked the Gators. And I don't know. I wasn't. Unfortunately for me, I couldn't say that I thought John Brantley did just the greatest job. But Florida had the athletes. This was a game of two underperforming teams that were really talented, and I thought Florida's talent really kind of shone through on this game.
I would like to say I watched a lot of this game, but it seems like, and I tweeted this, every time I turned the channel to go watch it, there was a commercial. Because I was spending more time on the Georgia game and the South Carolina matchup, and that was another game that I thought was pretty entertaining. Was South Carolina, and I know you saw it because you made some mentions on your Twitter feed about the punches being thrown by Alshon Jeffrey, and that was just there was. I saw at best a shove by Jeffrey. Now I did see a punch being thrown by the other individual, and
I mean, for me, that's just a referee that doesn't understand the scenario. I mean, that is one where you give them both a personal foul. You talk to both coaches and say, y'all need to clean it up, but you don't take two top first-round draft choices out of the game.
Yeah.
I mean, it was completely ridiculous. And then Jeffrey goes on to – I mean, Jeffrey was 50 yards away from breaking the SEC receiving yards record as a junior. And he gets kicked out of the game.
Like all time or?
All time.
And he was just manhandling those safeties back there. I mean, some of those catches, he would just go up and just power them. And it was. I
mean, and he ends up with the MVP.
That's what was funny is the guy that won the MVP was a guy that was ejected in the third quarter.
Yeah. So I mean, it was they had been kind of going at it all day, and I mean, if you went back and looked at it, and no bias from an SEC standpoint, I mean, Jeffrey just shoved the guy because he pushed him twice. He just turned around and just shoved him in his face, and that guy swung after the fact. But I didn't think either one of them should be kicked out of the game, and I thought that was just completely bogus what actually happened. But that's just me.
I agree. The things I take away from that game were Alshon Jeffrey is a beast.
Yes.
Even though I thought that it's a tough situation. I'm very close to the Tennessee situation, so I've talked about numerous times the way their injuries affected them. But South Carolina is another team that, losing Lattimore, and then the whole Garcia issue. Connor Shaw, I've been impressed with him the last few weeks. I thought he had another good game, and maybe it's easy to throw the ball up to a guy like Alshon Jeffrey, but
he's a kid that Connor Shaw. Number one, you got to give Spurrier a little bit of credit because he's playing a way that he doesn't really want to play, and it took him a game or two to kind of go, okay, I need to be running this read option and more of a running, option style with this kid. But the kid's, he's a coach's kid. You can tell he's kind of, he's football smart. I mean, he makes some dumb plays every once in a while, but they protected well. I mean, did y'all see the couple of plays where he had like 8 seconds and still took a sack because they were all guarded? I mean, Nebraska was just sitting 7 people back in coverage, but I like that Steve Spurrier actually made a change in kind of his philosophy to to kind of play better. And
what for Alshon Jeffrey being as good as he is, what that really did for South Carolina, and you're right, they're going to miss him next year because he did declare for the NFL, is the fact that, Shaw had all this extra time in the seat in game action format to really learn and improve. I mean, how much better is South Carolina going to be next season with Lattimore coming back from the knee injury? You're going to have Shaw with almost a full season worth of play under his belt.
And then their defense is going to be ridiculous again. I mean, they're not even losing any of the defensive line because Taylor's not leaving.
What about
Gilmore's leaving, but
Ingram or whatever? He's a senior, isn't he?
I don't think so. He might be a senior.
I think he's leaving.
I think he is leaving.
But
like Devin Taylor,
they still have Jadavon Clowney, who's going to be
a
freak for 2 more years. So.
And then they're like 4 deep in the interior tackles. You don't ever hear their names, but they're all good. I mean, they're setting up good.
And a good recruiting class. I mean, they're pretty solid coming in. Now, who is Georgia losing? Are they losing anyone major?
Not really. They just get the glorious schedule that you've ever seen in your life. They did it this year. That's what we talked about leading up was the schedule, was the difference between really them and South Carolina. What really mattered, South Carolina beat them, but South Carolina couldn't go through that gauntlet of a schedule that they had with the West teams. And, Georgia ends up with Mississippi State, Ole Miss, and Auburn. And so the 3 worst teams, and they do that next year. They get Ole Miss and Auburn, I believe, and
Texas A&M.
No, there's only 2. Because next year with the schedule for the 8 games.
But doesn't A&M?
They're on the West.
Yeah, they'll play Missouri.
Georgia, okay. They'll play Missouri instead. But
that's right.
From the West, I think South Carolina gets LSU or somebody in Arkansas or something. I mean, they get hammered, it kind of falls in. So I think South Carolina can be a better team, but Georgia's going to be right up there next year. So it'll be kind of the same race, I think, that we had here, unless Florida or Tennessee jumps up in the middle of it all of a sudden.
Please. Yeah. I don't see that.
Are you saying that for Florida? Is that what you're being happy about?
No, not really. No, Georgia, yeah. I don't know, like the offensive line or too much on defense.
Yeah.
Boykin seems like he's been there a long time.
Yeah,
they might lose.
Yeah, they're going to lose some stuff.
Rambo, they've had a couple of those.
Yeah, they're going to lose the Jones kid, the linebacker, going to leave.
Yeah, I know that Murray will still be there. They'll still have Kroll again.
Yeah, they're going to have a lot of
Orson
people
Charles, I think he's only a sophomore. Yeah. So they should have their skill players back for the most part.
Well, we mentioned Missouri and A&M, and we'll talk just a second about those guys because from our bowl pick standpoint, we put those in the mix, and they really helped the SEC out as far as good solid performances. A&M won by 11 against Northwestern, who was not the greatest Big Ten team in the world, but they had a couple of good quality wins. in the Big Ten.
And performing without their coach, with the
Yeah.
whole coaching scenario and all that stuff. I mean, they went out and
Played big.
Yeah, they played well.
Yeah, I mean, I was impressed with Texas A&M. I thought that they did what they had to do on offense. It was weird. I watched a few games, and earlier in the season, Texas A&M had a running back named, I think it was like Cyrus Gray, and I was wondering, I don't know if he got hurt. A buddy of mine said that he just kind of lost playing time, but he looked good. So they had some new running back that I had never heard of. But Tannehill just was throwing to Fuller and throwing to Ryan Swope and just looked really good. I mean, that offense was too good. Northwestern, I was so disappointed with the way they played. They have Dan Persa, who was just a top quarterback coming into this year. He had an Achilles problem, which is why his season was kind of shot. And what they did was they rotated quarterbacks like Spurrier used to do almost every play. They'd have the running quarterback, and then they put Persa in, and they're down 14, 16 points late, and they're still running this gimmick. Who's going to be the quarterback? And I just can't stand that. I'm fine with switching quarterbacks mid game, but I just don't think you can get in any rhythm rotating back and forth. And so I think that Texas A&M was just a better team, and I don't like that coaching move. I made a few comments about that on Twitter. So
The new hire or letting the old coach go?
No, I'm talking about the coaching in general of switching the quarterbacks.
Okay, I wasn't following what you were saying.
I have no idea what is Northwestern losing their coach or
no. I was talking about A&M.
A&M. Yeah, I think Sumlin will do a good job there.
Oh yeah, I mean he did a pretty good job on the recruiting front and getting some big time defensive players, and didn't even have a D coordinator hired yet. So I think he's gonna fit right in. I mean, that's right down in Harry's territory. But now Missouri they played in the Shreveport. Is that the?
They played North Carolina in the
that's the one where they had like 2,000 people in the stands.
Yeah, nobody was there.
Awful.
Almost
That's
like
an awful
was
bowl.
that the one where the Air Force Falcon got loose a couple years ago? Y'all remember that? You know how the Falcon will fly up in the air? It might have been at Shreveport, but the Falcon just left. It was downtown Shreveport or wherever. It was somewhere in Louisiana, I think. But just was gone for a day. And they had the Arizona guys, the same guys. I don't feed that. I don't feed them on game days anymore because I want them to come back. So
that's funny.
That's funny.
Missouri in that game they beat the snot out of them. I mean they got up 31-7 early in the second quarter or late in the second quarter, and
it was
just ran with it.
They controlled it pretty much from the whole time.
Yeah, they have a quarterback, James Franklin, who no relation, threw for 100 and something yards and ran for 150 yards and a couple touchdowns. That's and unfortunately I don't know if I think he's only a sophomore.
Yeah, he is.
So he'll have some time coming back. He'll be good. He'll be a good quarterback into a league where the SEC has some just a myriad of great players, but they don't have a ton of just stud quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And I don't know about the Tannehill kid either. I don't know if he's a senior.
I think he is.
Yeah, he seems like he's been there quite a while, but James Franklin will be one of the better ones coming back. So
especially in the East.
He's a sophomore. Franklin's a sophomore.
Yeah.
So what other games of interest were there? We haven't even talked about your team yet, Blair.
Yeah, I mean, snuck one out against Wake Forest, and
that's such a boring game.
Yeah.
That was boring.
And that's kind of, I mean, when you turn the ball over 4 times and still win, it's it's just kind of the way it is. But it's a win's a win. I mean, that's just kind of the way I look at it. I mean, and the interesting stat about it is the state is either tied or holds for the longest bowl winning streak right now at 5.
They've done a good job. They do a good job in bowl games.
So with Jackie Sherrill, and then the one with Kroom, and then the 2 with Mullen, we've all won. So it was a good night. I mean, a good crowd. Had over 55,000 people, and I would easily estimate over 40,000 for Mississippi State fans. And Wake Forest got to come in on their they allowed the cowbells in for the game, and so Wake Forest was able to bring their Demon Deacon on the field with the chopper, the motorcycle. So they got to enter in. It's like their entrance or whatever. It's pretty cool. So the weather was good, so they allowed them to do that. So turned out well, but
and the Titans didn't need that stadium anymore.
Yeah,
they were done.
That's true.
Explain to me the whole cowbell thing. Why is Mississippi State allowed to have artificial noisemakers when it's against the rules?
And for that fact that the refs were very liberal with you guys ringing those on neutral field.
On the cowbell? There's nothing you can do about it.
So you're telling me if I start a tradition at Tennessee where everybody brings in just foghorns the entire time, then that's fine?
No, well, I think what you have to understand is that the cowbell to Mississippi State truly is, and a lot of people smirk at it, but it's been there since the 1940s. So it is the same thing as the gator. To me, it's the same thing as a gator chop. It's the same thing as, whatever it is that might be a huge traditional thing. It just happens to be a noisemaker. And so the thing about it forever is that most people didn't bring in their cowbells to games because a lot of people had heirlooms that were passed down, so they were always scared of them being taken away.
You're referring to an heirloom cowbell, correct?
Right, exactly.
Okay,
yeah.
just clear the air, make it sure.
I want to pass this cowbell on.
You can say that all you want to, but my son's my son's 2 years old, and he's got a cowbell. I've got one as well.
Did you have that cowbell when you were a kid?
The one that I've got right now, I've probably had since I was 5 years old.
And you didn't give that to your son? What kind of man are you?
No, I'm not giving that one away.
I'm still using it.
The whole idea of the SEC is that it is a tradition, and it's an easy one to laugh at. But
I'm not saying it's not a tradition.
No. If you'll let me finish, let me finish what I'm actually saying. The whole compromise of the SEC is that essentially what was happening was that you had the 5,000 to 10,000 people out of the 55,000 actually would bring in a cowbell, and they would just ring it whenever. And it never really was that big of a deal, to be honest with you. But what they actually decided to do is to not completely erase it out of the picture, because what was going to happen, it's kind of like telling college students they can't do anything, and they're going to actually do it. So I think where the SEC came into a compromise is that they were just going to completely outlaw it all the way together, because if you understand the actual rule book, the artificial noisemaker is an SEC rule. It's not an NCAA rule. So you can literally have an artificial noisemaker at any football stadium in the NCAA. It's not a rule violation whatsoever. So there was about a 4-year stretch where they actually gave penalties for that, and then they did away with it. Everybody thought it was still existing out there, but it wasn't. And so what the SEC decided to do was come up with a compromise, and actually it was a compromise that was created by our AD that said, we don't want to lose the cowbell, but we want to actually be able to have it representative in our game day experience and all that type of stuff. So that's where the fines came in. And last year, the bowl game is not a good – basically the bowl game is a horrendous idea, and the only reason that Music City was doing that is because they knew 40,000 of them were going to show up and stay in a hotel, and they didn't really give a crap when they actually rang the bell. Everybody else can make the situation. But if you actually go to a home game, I think you'd be totally surprised, because I went last year when it was enrolled, and it was like you kind of had to learn it, because the first couple of games, I went to the Auburn game last year with Cam Newton, and it got in the fourth quarter, and we started ringing the cowbells in the third, on third down, and doing it irresponsibly.
But what happened?
And we ended up getting fined at the end of the year, $30,000 for those fines. But if you actually go and look at the last 3 games last year, completely different scenario. Once the ball was kicked off, and you basically had your times that you can actually ring it, which was in dead balls or touchdowns or timeouts and that type of stuff. And you could really see that they had totally changed the culture from that. And every game this year, it was crazy. You had everybody ringing a cowbell, and as soon as the ball's kicked on the kickoff, all the cowbells went down, no noise whatsoever, just scream. It's kind of an interesting dynamic, but I think they've done a good job with it, and it's actually increased kind of the tradition, and a lot of people have brought that back out where it had kind of gotten away from that 10 to 15 years prior.
So let me.
But if you don't know anything about it, and if you don't know anything about it, it's kind of a it's just
let me recap then.
Okay.
Double standard, right?
No, I don't think so.
Can Tennessee bring in foghorns
if they want to?
All right, Tennessee fans, all you Tennessee fans listening, new tradition.
It's not anything y'all do though. That's the whole deal. But it's the other thing is that it was one of the things.
Dog whistles.
The Tennessee toot. That's what we're doing.
I mean, if you can do whatever, I mean, you can do that from any way, shape, or
Vol
form.
Navy.
You can't play. You can do whatever you want to within the stadium. They can play loud music. They can do whatever, but you can't do it during the play, or you can't actually do it, at the certain time. So that's why bands and all that type of stuff. We're allowed to bring in the cowbells and say, hey, we're going to ring them at the appropriate times. That's part of the atmosphere.
Speaking of foghorns, let's jump over to the.
You got me started, man.
I know it's your answer. I understand your answers, but it's still, it's just not fair that one school gets to play a noisemaker. We'll go on to Vandy's Cincinnati.
They're the ones that needed a foghorn that day.
Well, Vandy's got the cannon that they
it's
the ship horn that they play, but no, that was a. Yeah, I didn't think Vandy played well. Jordan Rogers.
What actually happened to him?
He was about to be benched.
But he came up and it looked like he was hurt.
Yeah, I think they were about to take him out. I mean, he wasn't calling the plays that they wanted him to run. He was just kind of doing his own thing, which.
And the disappointing thing I thought was from a defensive standpoint. I mean, they gave up 31 points to a Cincinnati team that they shouldn't have been able to run the football. I mean, that running back's a good running back.
Isaiah Peters is very good, yeah.
But I mean, they could just do whatever they wanted to on them, and Vandy hasn't allowed people to do that all year. So, and I thought that was it's kind of the whole bowl, the time layoff and all that type of stuff. The defenses are usually going to have the advantage, and are a little bit more in sync. And I think that's where Vandy lost it from the get-go. Is they really couldn't. They could never weather that storm, and then their offense just was inept.
I just think we have to remember, yes, this Vandy was doing really good for Vandy. The bottom line is they were a 6-6 football team that's won one bowl game since 1983. So maybe it gotten our hopes up a little too much. Still a good season, but
it definitely was a Vandy of old. It had that feel to it when you were watching that game.
A nice crowd, though. I mean, they took people over there. I want to say they took upwards of 20,000 to the game, and so they had a decent crowd there, which I wasn't really expecting. But I mean, Cincinnati brought a good crowd, so. I mean,
I'm going to go outside the SEC for just a second because you were talking about how Jordan Rogers was playing and not calling the correct plays and stuff. I think it was the Arizona State Boise State game. Did you all watch that one where it was 4th down and the quarterback? Did you all watch that bowl?
Yeah, it was
I watched. Yeah, and I watched a little.
You know which one I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I think that was the game, and I've seen so many games that were outside the SEC I can't remember. But I just thought that was funny that the coach was calling for him to punt the ball. And he says, "No, we're gonna go for it on 4th down."
Was this Arizona State or was this Kellen Moore?
Arizona State.
Yeah, because
their coach is
fired dead.
Yeah, that's Arizona State, whose quarterback has declared for the draft. So maybe
that's why.
Yeah,
he knew he wasn't
7-footer.
He knew he wasn't going to come back in. He wasn't coming back either. But that was just funny. That the coach was bringing the punting team on, and he's telling them, "No, I'm running a play. Watch out." And he got everybody back up. Now, of course, he didn't make it look like a fool, but that's just an aside there that I thought was kind of funny through the bowl season.
Yeah, if we want to start talking about other games, I'm happy to do that. There are so many good games.
Oh man, it's been a good bowl season.
That Baylor Washington game, and there are plenty of people that tweeted, "This isn't real football. I want to see a 6-3 game." And
I loved
you can say what you want. I mean, yes, that Alabama LSU game for a low scoring game was an enjoyable one to watch, but. 67 to 56 game. That's where it's at. That was so much fun to watch. The Rose Bowl.
That was
Oregon, Wisconsin was so good to watch. The Fiesta Bowl, and that was weird. I thought Wisconsin should have beat Oregon in that game. I definitely think Stanford was the better team between Oklahoma State and Gundy is like. He's like, look, you got to keep us in mind. Look how we played. I'm like, Stanford was better than y'all.
Yeah.
It was just that it was bad playing in overtime. That almost touchdown, which do y'all remember the play where Stanford receiver went to the ground, dove for it, caught it. They called it a catch, and he kind of rolled out. No, that was a Michigan game. I'm sorry. That was a Michigan game.
But that was another good game.
Virginia Tech, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Michigan, Virginia Tech, another great game. I thought Virginia Tech was the better team there. I don't know. I think they play that game 10 times. Virginia Tech wins 9 of them.
I don't think so.
That game was – they should have killed them. Michigan, Denard Robinson, for being he was inept. It was horrible watching him play.
But with that being said, if they played it 10 times, the other Denard Robinson might have showed up.
Sure, but I'm just saying
because Michigan was a much better team, and I thought that they had the ability to win by much more than 3 points.
Well, I also know that the Sugar Bowl picked Michigan and Virginia Tech so they'd bring fans, and there were 12,000 empty seats. So they only had 57,000 people or something at the game. So
and that's a big kick in the what for Boise State.
Boise State, yeah. I was like, yeah, they're going to bring. I mean, how many people are they going to bring?
As Drew rolls his eyes, he doesn't agree.
Boise State's been there 10 years in a row.
Do you think that would
beat TCU?
BCS? Okay.
Beat TCU and we can talk.
Okay.
So they should take Virginia Tech out of the ACC.
They had to.
Beat
Georgia. They didn't
Georgia.
have to. They weren't even high enough.
Who was their? Who won the ACC?
Freaking Clemson.
Okay, so
who just got destroyed? They were
that
was
too.
Yeah,
that was bad
they were
too.
awful.
Yeah, they chose to take an ACC team.
What was so the West Virginia Clemson game, was that the Orange Bowl?
Yeah,
That's so bad.
it's horrible. And
They scored 70 on 'em.
Dabo's stupid. Oh man, he's just absolutely. I mean, his players have no respect for him. Do you see him? They're all laughing at him. They basically don't take anything he says. He's a great salesman, I guess, when he gets out on the recruiting trail. But, I mean, he sat there with Lisa Salters at the beginning of the game and said, basically, our defense is coming to play. And then they gave up 49 points in the first half. I mean,
They showed up. They were physically there to play.
It was embarrassing.
I'll tell you this: Tennessee's defensive coordinator position. The big word was Kevin Steele, and
Before the game,
when he got 70 hung on him, that name's been
see, that's the whole thing.
Squashed.
Is that I mean.
Let's talk about. We've got one more bowl game that's still we've not talked about that happened in the SEC, but let's talk about that for a second. Your defensive coordinator position. Is there anything closer to happening in Tennessee?
Heard
some new names this week.
Yeah, I've heard. You hear
Derek's mom's up for it, I think.
Yeah, Barbara Dooley. That she's probably a good spokesman. It's so weird. We have players. The kicker tweeting, "Welcome Randy Shannon to the Big Orange Country."
Yeah,
and it's just silly.
And then
like
45 minutes later says, "Hey, there hasn't been anything. Hey, Vol fans, there hasn't been anything reported yet. So don't report me on that or something."
A beat writer in Miami. Has already said that it's happening. I mean, there have been multiple people that said this deal is done, Randy Shannon to Tennessee, but there's nothing coming from Tennessee.
And he's currently with...
He's out of coaching right now.
He was the head coach at Miami, which... I mean, he's a good defensive guy, and I think that would be. I mean, that'd be a great hire. That's going to be it would be a big name.
And he was the guy that was supposed to clean up. I mean, he was a long-time assistant, and he's from the rugged parts of Miami, and he's like a great guy, and was only going to bring in high character, and then all of a sudden, all the stuff rolls out. Yeah, the Shapiro that he was there. Not only his time. I mean, a lot of that had to do with Coker as well, but I mean, he was still there and involved in that. So, I mean, he did kind of clean it up a little bit. He just didn't win.
It's coming back to me now. If he'd have won, things have been different. It'd have been the old you then.
But he is supposedly kind of a player's, rugged coach, and would be a kind of an interesting get for him.
You hear the name Ron Zook,
which I think that would be a great hire.
I think if you're Dooley and you think Kevin Steele is a guy that can come back to the program, and he's the guy, and they gave up 70 points in just a freak evening. I mean, I don't think 70 points should be the one that actually keeps him from getting the job, but I think it definitely hurt. But I tell you what, man, Holgorsen, dude's got it rolling, man. That for West Virginia, I mean, that was just ridiculous. But.
Now, you've also taken some setbacks this week as well down in Tennessee, have you not? Because wasn't it rumored that the D coordinator at LSU was going to Isn't he a former Tennessee guy?
Chavis played at Tennessee.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a situation.
And he turned down like $1.3 million to keep his $900,000 to play with LSU or coach with LSU.
When you get run out of town, here's the bad thing, and this is tough, and this is what I hate about coaching. And I was one of those guys that was fine with the change from Fulmer, but you got a guy like Phil Fulmer who's born and raised Tennessee. I mean, he was a coaching legend, won a national championship. This is a guy that I really thought after he won the national championship he could coach at Tennessee as long as he wants to. Now the problem is, you have a couple bad seasons and you start missing bowl games, and it seems they get complacent. And Chavis was kind of a package deal with him, so they ran them both out of town. I mean, if I'm John Chavis, I'm sure he loves his alma mater and he likes Tennessee, and I'm not saying that sometime down the future he wouldn't come back, but why would you leave LSU right now? I mean, you get the best defensive players in the world.
Yeah,
and it's going to
be a better defense next year.
Yeah, and the other thing is that it's part of those things. All those guys got egos, and you basically run him, kind of run him out of town and say, hey, I don't want you anymore, and then 2-3 years later I want you back type of deal. So I think he loves Tennessee, but he's in a good spot right now. I think from a consistent athletic standpoint, he can have better tools to work with at LSU than he would have on a consistent basis at Tennessee.
Sure.
And we'll talk about now that we've covered the Tennessee coordinator position. We'll revert back to the only non-ABC, ESPN family and network games that there was that I know of in the college bowl season, and that was the Cotton Bowl.
Yeah, the little Fox game have Charles Davis and Gus Johnson announcing.
Man.
That's
Charles Davis is so underrated. He's so good.
Tennessee guy right there.
I know. That's why I flipped it. He was representing Tennessee. Was getting some representation during the bowl season.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, thanks for that one. That game, Arkansas is a better team. I thought it was a kind of a sloppy game. Joe Adams returns his fourth punt return for a touchdown this year, which is awesome when you think about it. Here's Tennessee fan and me, we were trying to think about when the last time Tennessee returned a punt for a touchdown was, and I think it was like 2005. Yeah. And that just makes me want to shoot myself.
And of course, did you see ESPN the next day? The first thing they show is the
poor tackling by Tennessee.
Not the Adams return for a touchdown against Tennessee, but the poor tackling.
Shane, once again, I will tell you this. I think we had just as good a chance to tackle Joe Adams if you take away 3 of the guys and put Blair Smiley, Shane Bailey, and Drew Young in a uniform. If we could have gotten in a uniform, if we knew how to buckle everything up. It's been a long time since I buckled. I don't know if they've made some innovations in shoulder pads. It used to be just the strap underneath each arm, But unless they've made some changes, if I could have gotten a uniform on, I think I had just as good a chance of tackling him than Tennessee did. So,
but it was the last one against Kansas State was still impressive.
He's unbelievable.
I tell you what, in Kansas State and that quarterback Klein, I mean, they've been saying it all year. Herb Street have been talking about it. If you want to see a throwback, kind of do it everything, kind of small in stature, but it's just the guts of the team. And that dude was fun to watch because he was just, you could just say he was getting everything out of his talent that he possibly could. He's got a weird throwing motion. But
I've said this numerous times. I played college fantasy football this year and drafted Colin Klein with my last pick just because they said you get more points for rushing touchdowns, and I knew that he was a running quarterback, and I was like, well, I'll give it a shot. Yeah. And he played for me all year. It was unbelievable. Oh, yeah. I mean, that kid, he had 28 rushing touchdowns, I think, this year.
Did you hear the weird stat, though? They were 10-2, Kansas State, and they had been outgained on an average of 50 yards a game the whole year. They only outgained their opponent 3 times out of their 12 games.
And I'll tell you this, coming from a guy that doesn't live in Kansas and doesn't watch the game, doesn't have any rooting interest other than the fact that I play in a $0 college fantasy football league. I watched about 6 of their games this year, and it's true. I mean, they weren't that. I mean, they're not that good. They've just got to. Colin Klein was very Tim Tebow-esque on a. If he was at a school like Florida, I mean, it would have been kind of a Tim Tebow type ordeal because that's what he did. He just very tough and ran the ball. I mean, he ran it 24 times this last game. So that's the bowl games right there.
That's
Shane.
The bowl games. All right, I'm gonna take a break from talking sports for a minute because, we should have kicked things off by saying this is our 25th episode. We're silver anniversary right here.
Can I get my gold watch or gold bracelet or something here?
It's silver, so.
Silver. Come on, man. It should be gold. 25 is gold, isn't it?
It is. It's 50 to get gold, I think. Talking to a man that's nowhere close to.
Hey, did you say Colin Klein was small in stature?
He's like 6'4".
He's 6'5", 226. What? That's a big old boy.
Really?
Yeah, that's Blair Smiley numbers right there.
Man, that is.
So
I thought he was like 6'1" or something.
6'5", 226. I was like, when you said that, I was like, he's a big old boy.
Well, that makes a little bit of sense now because he kind of seemed like he wasn't very fluid. So I could see now being tall. I didn't realize that they got some monsters on the field then.
Yeah. Junior gonna play one more year.
Jeez.
Keeper league, hopefully.
So 25 episodes.
25 episodes.
That's impressive.
Is it so? This is episode 24, though, right?
Correct.
We started with episode 0.
So yeah, for those of you that are going, but I just downloaded episode 24.
Now, is episode 0? Is that the one that I made you use the edit button on?
I think it was. Trying out the edit button was our very first episode.
I can't believe that in 24 episodes since I've missed 2 or 3. I haven't dropped any. I've done a good job, man. I got an award for that.
You do. I've got it sitting in the bag over here.
Shane, I can assure you when we get a little more big time and you have a little more time to edit and some and equipment to do it. If I since I know how hard it is to really spend a lot of time editing things out, that's why I keep it clean. But once we get a little more big time, I'm opening up.
So for all of you listeners out there that would love to be a sponsor, once you can sponsor, you're gonna start throwing it and making me have to work for it. Is what
Absolutely,
you're saying.
yes. I can assure you, and anybody that follows me on Twitter, which I don't know that I think I've got like 50 followers. I need to get up to 100, guys. Anybody that follows me on Twitter, I can assure you that this is not my normal vernacular. I'm usually
more colorful.
Yeah, very much more colorful. And if we could get that explicit tag on YouTube or on iTunes, then it might be a funnier podcast. I don't know.
Well, the 6-year-olds that listen might not enjoy it.
Yeah, we got all those 6-year-olds listening to us.
Because they know how to download us at iTunes or find us on Stitcher Radio or at the website at SEC.
Good segue, Shane, for you. Forgot to mention that.
Yeah, I did not mention that.
But I'll tell you what, 6-year-old kids, I guarantee you they're better at doing that stuff than at least me and Blair.
Yeah.
You might know it because you've done it a lot more, but it's unbelievable, the technology with kids. My 5-year-old nephew got a Kindle Fire for Christmas. I mean, he's over there doing everything with it, knows what he's doing.
Well, Harper, since she was 2, would take my iPhone and just go play games.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even have to tell her which app was hers. She knew. She would go find them and just.
Yeah.
And there was also calls to Brazil, but that's another subject. Not really.
Sao Paulo.
But we are on YouTube at SECSRT, on the website, SECSportsRoundtable.com or SECSRT.com. Like I said, we are on iTunes or Stitcher Radio. So go out there, like us, whatever the thing is. Facebook, like, follow us at Twitter, SECSRT, subscribe, whatever you need to do to help get the word out. If you like what you're listening to, go tell your friends, hey, man, go check out SECSRT. We'd love to get some more listeners and love to hear your comments and stuff.
Yeah, that's what I'd like. I'd like some comments. If people want to, Blair to do it with no shirt on, something like that. I mean, just for the ladies out there listening.
Or you want to see me put an extra layer of clothes on?
Yeah, exactly. If you want
a
me
hat to cover the shiny, whatever it needs to be, let us know.
If I need to get out of the frame for the YouTube or something like that.
We have done that a couple times.
Yeah. Probably would help ratings, but yeah, love any kind of comments. Tell us what we're doing bad, tell us what we're doing good.
And one other thing I will throw out before we go right back into sports is that we've done a couple of live blogs on the website, and if you've not been a part of something like that before, it's a lot of fun. It's just basically you having a discussion with a bunch of your friends that aren't in the same room with you, so you can throw out whatever you want and strike up a conversation basically about the games. And we've done. The three set of games we had on January 2nd, as well as the Cotton Bowl, and I think we're going to try to do it again for the national championship game. And if you guys like it, you got to get on there and let us know, because it's something we can. It's not hard for us to do. It's just a matter of making sure we can make it work in our schedules. But it's not something that would be unheard of for us to do it on maybe a weekly basis on one of the SEC games during the basketball season as well. But it is a lot of fun, and it's a great way for you guys to join the conversation and talk to us on a live blog. So if you're out there, make sure you're and you get to hear this before the SEC championship game or the BCS national championship game, which is one of the same almost.
You said the SEC championship
I
game?
Did.
It is.
It's
just a rematch, I guess.
It is. Well, except that Georgia was playing in that. But any way you want to look at this game that's coming up Monday, get out there, join that conversation, and let us know. And we can also do this throughout some basketball. I think we'll try to do some basketball games as well that are coming up. But you want to talk about? I'll throw it out to you two. You want to talk basketball, then the BCS championship or the national championship? No, I was right. Yeah, BCS game, or which one you want to do first?
Yeah, I mean, let's hit basketball for just a quick second. I will say this: just very proud of Tennessee. A big win against Florida to open the SEC. I still don't think Tennessee's a very good team. I'm fine with I'll take this. Give me 8-8 SEC season. Give us a win over teams like Florida. I would love. I mean, Tennessee travels to Mississippi State on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Wednesday. I mean, that's going to be a tough place to play.
That's a loss.
I do. I think I picked. We picked the games, and I picked Tennessee to beat Florida, which
you were the only one.
I was just hoping, but I picked Tennessee to beat Florida. But I also picked Tennessee to lose to Mississippi State. So I'm trying to be realistic on it. And I do think there's a big difference between playing at home and playing on the road. I think even it's more so in basketball than in football.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was just getting ready to tell you, looking at the 6 games that played Saturday, 5 of the home teams won that game, and the only one that didn't was Georgia
at Alabama playing at Georgia.
At Georgia,
and that was
that's
just
right.
a disparity of talent too.
Exactly.
Right there.
I mean,
it should have been at State and Arkansas, but we won't get in that.
Yeah, but y'all gave up 100 points, didn't you?
98.
Was it 98-88? That's some defense being played in that one. So it's I mean, I'll take a season like that for Tennessee. I'll take some ups and downs. I would love a win over Kentucky. I'd love a win over Vanderbilt. That's the tough thing is when you're down, you have to start looking at games. Are these winnable games? And it's hard. I mean, even 2 years ago, Tennessee could win every game on their schedule in the SEC. Now, I mean, no, you can't expect to go into a Kentucky and win. I really didn't expect Tennessee to play as well as they did against Florida at home.
What West teams does Tennessee have at home? Do you know?
Well, they're playing. Though I know I have no idea.
Alabama, I think, at home. I mean that's the. I mean, but I mean Tennessee should be able to. The South Carolinas and the Auburns
and the Georgia,
and the Georgias. I mean,
Mississippi State or Mississippi.
Yeah, don't do that.
Well, I mean, I don't even think you made the podcast where I gave some Tennessee love to basketball. I don't think you happened to be on that episode. It was while you were out for those couple of weeks. But I said, as a Kentucky fan, that's one team, if you looked at the SEC, besides Vanderbilt, that I was most scared of the way they were trying to play ball in December because they were looking at improving, not winning. And I think that's all starting to click, and it's not quite there yet. But come mid-January, February, if you guys get things and the addition of the guy you got, the transfer, I mean that's just going to be even. It's going to give him a week or two to get into learning some extra plays and things. But
I still see Tennessee as kind of like cheering for the Titans this year. I mean, on the way to an 8-8 is very, very frustrating because you're going to win some games you're not supposed to win, but you're still going to lose those ones that you can go back and go, why did you lose that? And so it's just that average deal. And I think if you go 8-8 in the SEC, I think that's a successful campaign from where you were in December. Because you played well at the very beginning of the year, then you kind of hit a lull there. But if y'all play defense like you're playing, it's going to be a tough place to play at home.
Well, that's the difficult thing. You look at Tennessee went from and they were slowed down a little bit more last year because that suited them a little bit. But Bruce Pearl was, press and run and try to make it an offensive and outscore people. And Martin's not that. He comes from Gene Caden. He comes from that Purdue play defense, we're going to be tougher than you mentality. And to get a team that didn't play that style of basketball to do it, and they've shown those signs. They did it against Duke in Maui. They did it against Memphis in Maui, and they did it against Florida. And the tough thing is that those are hard enough games to where they went 1-2 in those 3 games. So Tennessee's played a tough schedule. They've played Pittsburgh. They've played Duke. They've played Memphis twice. They've played Florida now. They get to play Connecticut. I mean, so it's a tough schedule. I mean, I think it's hopefully it's an NIT. Hopefully it's a win the rest of your games with a national championship. More than likely, it's an NIT type season. Tennessee leads the SEC right now, tied for the lead, 1-0. But we'll see. I still think it goes through Kentucky. I mean, they just they rolled again yesterday. So
they the score said they rolled, and what was promising for them is that of anything, it was Terrence Jones. I don't know what the final stats were for him, but I think he ended up with over 20.
Yeah.
So that finger injury and that pouting being a young adult, we'll say, we won't call him a kid.
He had his first 7 shots, I think, or something to that effect. So
but that one game he was, I guess it was Indiana, where he just disappeared. You started to see the Terrence Jones that we saw last season, and Kentucky really needs him. They're good without him, but to have a run to go deep into the tournament, they're going to have him step up, and you saw that start to happen yesterday with Jones. So if I had to take anything away from that one game, starting off from the SEC play, was that he showed up.
I tell you what, man, Kentucky, just looking at them and watching them, obviously watching them with the in-laws when they played Louisville and beat them, that was kind of fun. This, outside of Teague, who's been, for a normal guy, he's been very good, but for a Kentucky point guard under Calipari, that string of point guards,
when you're
he's
going
been a
after
little
Rose
bit,
and Evans,
and it's kind of crazy to say that because he's averaging 10 points and 6 assist or whatever it is, but he's underperformed a little bit. But I tell you what, the string of guys that he has between Anthony Davis, the kid Gilchrist, the other Welcher or whatever, the other guards that they have, oh man, they're a good group of freshmen. And Terrence Jones is, he's their 4th best player at best. And I think they need him to play better, but I think he's the kind of guy that Calipari, if he wants to sit over there and suck on the bench, they can afford to let him sit over there and suck on the bench. And I just like the string that he's got together. And you normally have Cousins and John Wall, and it was the big man point guard that was just so dynamic.
Right.
But this one's kind of spread across, and I think it's a good collection of players.
Yeah, but you've got Teague, who's still he's not John Wall. He's not been able to run that offense. So with that missing piece there, you still have to have the strength of Jones in there.
Speaking of DeMarcus Cousins, man,
getting a coach fired.
What a baby! I'm going to take my ball and go home if they don't fire the coach. I want to be traded. And, of course, they fire the coach right after that.
Yeah, because you pick him 5th. You got too much invested in him.
I know. I just think that's...
Yeah, it's dumb, but it's the NBA, baby.
And that's Paul Westphal, too. That's a legendary coach.
Yeah. He's not the only one that's had a coach fired, though, in the NBA.
Yeah, but he's a second-year player that's averaging, 12 and 10. That which is good for a second-year player, but it's not...
It's no Kevin Love.
Yeah, that's no Michael Jordan saying I need a coach fired. But
I don't disagree. I think it's childish that anybody can have that much power over your coach, but that's the NBA and the problems they've got, and that's a whole other podcast that I don't even care about.
You don't want to get off on NBA?
No, you've mistaken me for someone who likes that league. So. That's really it in the SEC. It's just day 1 or day 2. All 12 teams played SEC play yesterday, and like I'd mentioned before, there were really no huge surprises aside from the UT upset against Florida, which was a huge win.
That's a huge win. Yeah.
Florida was ranked 14th, and we're expecting to come in there. And when's the last time Florida has a big problem playing in Tennessee or Thompson Bowling? Do they not?
Tennessee has done very well against Florida in the last.
Bruce
Pearl was good against them.
Yeah, they had gone on a 4-game skid where they lost to them all 3 last year, and I think one before, but they broke a 4-game losing streak to them. But most of those wins at Thompson Bowling under Pearl's first part was pretty tough. But I tell you one thing I saw yesterday, my frustration obviously is State's a whole different subject for another day, but Vandy, they just took a bad Auburn team. I tell you what, Vandy's one of those teams that we may get to the 1st of February, and they're the team that kind of bounced around and had all these pieces missing, and they lost a couple of games early, that all of a sudden hits their stride. And because
I think it started at Marquette.
I mean, what they did in Marquette and then what they did to Auburn yesterday. I tell you what, Kevin Stallings supposedly, and if you've ever heard him talk, we're here in Nashville, so I hear him all the time on the radio and stuff. He's an old school, kind of no nonsense. A lot of people say he kind of wears on players, and you could see that in Vanderbilt and what I thought in December, where they weren't having fun. It didn't look like it was fun at all to be out there playing. I mean, it just seemed like it was just weighing on them. Supposedly, he had this Dr. Phil practice where he basically just threw the balls out, and and everybody got a chance to kind of say, "Hey, what do you think about the program, and what are your, concerns?" And they kind of got to air out, and kind of get everything out on the table, which is kind of really unlike Stallings, I think, but I think it's pretty smart. And ever since then they've kind of turned it. And I think with Ezeli getting back and some of their players, if they can ever figure out the guard play and how to guard people on the perimeter and not let those quick guard teams like a Cleveland State and because Marquette was the type of team that you're like, they're going into Marquette and this is going to be a tough matchup for them. And they just blew the doors off. I mean, it was 38-9
from the tip-off. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy. So they're playing good ball. So that's the thing I think we need to watch over the next probably 4 games to kind of see where they are. Is this just something that's just a hot streak, and they're going to kind of go back to some other consistent ways, or are they going to kind of keep adding to it?
I mean, to me, it seems like they've turned a corner, and it's not going to be just of course. A team like Vanderbilt could easily lapse back to some of their old habits they had earlier in the season, but they're turning out to be the Vanderbilt team that we thought they were going to be when you looked at some preseason numbers.
And I'm a huge.
They are who we thought they.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and I'm a huge Stallings. I'm a huge Stallings guy. I think he makes end game. I think a lot of times is that when he gets a matchup. Issue where the guards sometimes he gets out athlete, even though he's got probably as good athletes as he's ever had at Vanderbilt. But a lot of times they kind of get into a scenario where they can't compete from an athletic standpoint on the perimeter, but from just an actual in-game coaching, I think Stallings is the exact opposite of what Stansbury is for me.
Talent versus coaching.
Yeah, because Stansbury, we just got to out athlete anybody because you're not going to out-coach anybody, and that was kind of shown up in their lack of play last night at Arkansas.
Yeah,
I hate Arkansas. I hate all you Arkansas people, just to let you know. We haven't won a football game there, and we're 4-10 under Stansbury there, so I hate Arkansas.
No love lost there.
So how do you feel about Arkansas?
And I like you, Arkansas Razorback, so just because one of us doesn't like you doesn't mean you need to not listen to this podcast. So you're trying to run off
I apologize.
Our 6 listeners we have. 2 of them might be Arkansas fans, and now you just ran them off. So I'm going to apologize for you because we need every listener we can to tell somebody. Let's go back, I guess, cover the BCS championship game, and we'll wrap this thing up. But that's really what all of this, last 20, 25 weeks of accumulated. I can't even
culminated.
Culminated. There we go.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah, exactly. 2 is this game right here. We kicked off the podcast doing our football breakdown of the East and the West, and we all agreed in the West it was going to be Alabama and LSU. We never dreamed that they both could be able to find a way to get to the national championship game again to play each other, but. That's how the chips fell.
We thought there was a good chance there'd be an SEC team in the national championship game.
We never thought
it'd be 2 teams from the SEC, much less the SEC West.
We never thought that one of the SEC. We never thought that the BCS would have a team lose from the SEC. We'll say that.
Yeah,
that's true.
It's weird. I think it's kind of quiet right now. There hasn't been as much hype around this game, in my opinion, in the last week or so. Because they've played already, and it's the SEC. And I think if it was, Oregon, like last year, Oregon versus Auburn, I do think it got a little more press, and I think there'd been more stuff on TV. I think the fact that this is a rematch, has kind of taken a little bit away from it. Now that being said, I'm excited.
Except that ESPN's been camped out there for the last 2 months, it seems.
Yeah.
I mean, they've had, Nick Saban had eggs and ham for breakfast, reports. I mean, they followed the buses in, for goodness sakes, from Baton Rouge.
Man, did y'all see that? That was crazy.
So, I mean,
they had like 30 police escort. I mean,
but
all the way down the interstate.
I'll say that and agree with you, though. I mean, as much hype as ESPN is trying to put into this game, it's not building like I think they would like it to. You think that's fair?
Yeah, I just once again, I just don't think. I just think that this is a game where you've got two football teams. It's going to be settled on the field. There's not a lot of trash talk. Maybe there is, and I'm not listening to it. I just haven't seen.
I think you got two coaches that try not to take the press conference and make kind of stage it, and you're not competing with this is the Pac-10 versus the SEC like you're talking about. I mean, I think it's the SEC, it's big boy football, and it's going to be. We don't really need to talk because we've been there and we've done that. And
yeah, I feel like this is a business trip.
Yeah,
go get the W, and that's what's hard.
I think from an actual fan standpoint and from an actual event standpoint in New Orleans, probably going to be the craziest environment that you'll ever see. Because I heard Herb Street talk this week on the radio that he said there's nothing in college football more intimidating than an SEC team in the Sugar Bowl. When he said, I've just never seen anything more intimidating than that. And he said, I can't imagine a game in New Orleans with two SEC teams. He said it's just going to be his loudest thing you can think about. And then obviously. Do
you think the venue has hurt the hype a little bit this year? I mean, because think of how much has gone on in New Orleans in the last 10 days. I mean, was there what bowl game was there?
Oh, they had a Sugar Bowl.
Sugar Bowl, and then you had
the playoff
Saints games last night.
2 nights ago.
Last night for 2 nights from the BCS, and then you have the BCS game tomorrow. I mean, that's a lot of competition in one city. For now, the economy in New Orleans just has to be extreme. The banker in me again's coming out. All the injection of cash.
I can't imagine
coming into that city pre Mardi Gras is going to be ridiculous. But I mean.
I think we'll see today it kind of ramp up a little bit because they obviously had, when we were coming over here, they had the press conference that was going pretty live on Twitter. I think we actually found out Nick Saban wakes up at 6:15 every morning with his wife, and they watch the Weather Channel for 30 minutes. So
you said the Leather Channel?
That's good stuff.
And he knows who Al Green. And he knows who Al Green is.
Yeah, and he knows who Al Green is. Yeah. So it was
Al Green.
I think
Weather Channel.
Yeah, exactly.
Saban's a freak.
Breaking news! You heard it here.
What that tweet say? Roll fetish roll. So anyway,
but now is that the message that you showed me before the podcast that your buddy sent you?
No, that was
not acceptable for radio.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
That one definitely was not newsworthy on this podcast. That's for sure.
How do y'all think the game's going to go? I mean, we've had 2 months to kind of digest it, and are you going back on what you thought it might happen, or is it just still going to be?
I'll tell you what. Let's deal in absolutes. All right, we don't really know what's going to happen, but I will tell you this: this game has been a pick'em for a long time. The line has moved. I know it looked like it moved to -2 for Alabama. So the late money is going on Alabama, and I think it's kind of the same way that I've looked at it all season. And I said this right at the very beginning. My pick in the West was Alabama. Well, clearly that was incorrect. I mean, LSU beat them on the field. They won LSU has done what they need to do to be the #1 team in the nation. Unfortunately for them, Alabama's just been hanging around, and I do think the one team that really can give a shock to LSU and beat LSU is Alabama, and that's the team they have to play. So I'm not going to turn from what I said. The only team that I thought could win the national championship at the beginning of the year was Alabama. I thought they were the most talented. I still think that they have the better coach. I think they have just a more talented roster. Yeah. But, we said as late as November, toward the end of November, I made the actual comment, I'm not sold on LSU yet, which was a ridiculous comment. Yeah. And I still, I think LSU can still play that nobody's giving us respect card. I think that I would not be surprised if LSU comes out, and I really wouldn't be surprised if they win this game by 10, 15 points.
Well, that's the one thing when you take that game and you kind of go, okay, they missed 4 out of 6 field goals, and you actually kind of chart it like the old, the odds makers do. I mean, Bama should have won the football game. They moved the ball between, till they got to the 30s. In between the 30s, they moved it a lot better than LSU did, and so there's kind of that natural, deal that Alabama can move the ball on them. I think there's 2 things that keep me coming back to LSU that I can't just get away from. Is one, Jordan Jefferson was kind of thrown into that game, and now he's had several games to kind of play in that role. Although, and I think he kind of thrives in it, is inconsistent. He has been all over his career. But the other thing is at LSU, it seems like every time there's always this slight thing out there that, well, they can do this, but there's kind of like that underdog mentality, and I think they're getting that. I think they thrive in that, and every time that there's somebody that says, I don't think you can do this, you can do this, but I think they just had an answer for it, and so that's where I think they just have this kind of a special deal that it's just going to be. I think it's just going to be a great game. If
you can play that underdog card and the nobody believes in us card, it's incredible how much of a rallying factor that can be. And if you are the undefeated consensus #1 team in the nation and you can still find a way to play that card, it's a huge advantage. I'll tell you what, I think if the game goes the way the last one did, where there aren't many big plays and it's just solid football, not a lot of turnovers and mainly just march down the field, I think Alabama wins this game. If it becomes a game where there's more scoring and there's some big plays, then I think it tends to go more towards LSU. One thing that I would be concerned about if I was LSU is look at their last 2 games. Their last 2 games are against Georgia and Arkansas. And those games have followed the exact same pattern. They've gotten behind to start with, and then they have absolutely stopped the bleeding, both of them using a kick return by Matthew, and then they went on and blew them out. I'll tell you, if you spot a team like Alabama 14 points, I think it's going to be much harder to come back on them than it is a Georgia or an Arkansas.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I totally agree with that.
What was that? What's that website that ran the projections on the computer like 50,000 times?
Yeah, it did it 50,000 times, and it was like
projection something.
Yeah, and it was like 51 to 49 or whatever it was.
50.5% of the time Alabama won, and against 49.5%. So I mean, it's if you want to talk about how evenly matched up these 2 teams are, but they play football so differently.
Yeah.
Are you trying to look at
I was seeing if I could
projection machine, is that what it is?
Yeah. I mean, they play their defensive. Yeah, their defenses are so different. And then we talked about this all year, is that Alabama just line up a wall and they say you're just not going to cross it. And LSU gets up the field and they're so aggressive, they just get after you. That can lead to big plays, but at least a huge negative plays. I remember when they were playing Mississippi State, I was like, hey, ref cuts the little, cuts up the middle for, 2 runs for 8 yards, and then all of a sudden he gets sacked for 13, and you're just like, good gravy. I mean, it was just, you have so it's just one of those things where LSU's large plays, their negative plays, have always benefited.
It's prediction machine.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
But I'm looking forward to it, man. I think it's going to be a good time.
I'll tell you this. I'm looking at a USA Today article, and they have they use the EA Sports NCAA Football 2012 to simulate some of the games, and they've got Alabama beating LSU 20-17. It says on a game-winning field goal as time expires. They ran this for the Sugar Bowl. They had Michigan beating Virginia Tech. They ran the Rose Bowl, had Oregon beating Wisconsin, very close, 42-35, which the final score is 45-38 in that game. And they had the Fiesta Bowl, Oklahoma State beating Stanford. So they got all 3 of those right. So although that's kind of the favorite in all of them. So who knows?
I I think that you're not going to have a replay of the was it the October 5th game? Is that
November 5th.
November 5th game. I think you're going to have more scoring. I mean, if you look at Vegas, they definitely think there's going to be more scoring. That over-under's
37, I think, or 38.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can't put an over/under at 9 like it was for that game. So 37 is pretty low in college football. So.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's 20-17.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm just saying that if you put it
20-17, isn't that exactly what that simulated?
Exactly, and that's and that's what we do a bowl picking at the beginning of the season, and you pick the exact score, and I picked it 20-17 Alabama because I thought Alabama was going to win the game, and the over/under was 37. So why don't you just do what Vegas does?
And the big plays, I mean, these big games, they always talk about the special teams, and there's a distinct advantage between the two with regards to special teams because, I mean, that's the one area that Alabama has struggled. And the one thing I go back to is that, you always talk about Alabama and Nick Saban and preparation. Although I don't think he's as great as an in-game coach, he just is like the best preparation for a game. But they were the ones that actually made the mistakes. And that's the one thing that was kind of interesting. And you don't know. I mean, those kids, those seniors are going away with losing, 4 games? 5 games total in 4 years. They don't lose a lot of games. So it's going to be big boy football, that's for sure. I'm just getting jacked for it.
Yeah, I'm done talking about it, Shane.
You're just ready to watch it.
I'm ready to watch this. I'm excited about this game.
Well, I think we're done talking about it as well. Make sure you tune in tomorrow night. While you're watching the game, pull up your iPod, iPhone, iPad, Kindle,
your tablet,
any
desktop.
of those desktop. Go to the desktop. Get your
Apple, old Apple floppy disk drive.
Your Commodore 64.
Commodore 64, we're on there. Atari.
And your laptop. Make sure you go to the website, check out the live blog. Make sure you join the conversation and tell us what you think and join the conversation as we talk this game up and give you some updates. If you're one of those crazy individuals that are for some reason not in front of a TV, if you follow us on Twitter through the live blog, we'll be giving some game updates as well through that live blog that'll go out on Twitter. So make sure you're following us at SECSRT. It's that time of the podcast where we open it up and do the open mic. Drew, you want to kick us off today?
Yeah, my life's been dominated by sports. I can't these last few days here. Just a lot of football watching. Started a new job, but definitely happy when the day ends and get to come home and watch some bowl games. I don't really have anything else to say except for I'm excited about tomorrow. I will say that a new show that I'm kind of addicted to right now. It's the old one's Chopped on the Food Network. Yeah. It's just a fun show to watch. I'm impressed by how they can make a good meal out of just horrible ingredients in 30 minutes without knowing what they are. So other than that, I've been anything if it's not football, that's about all I've been watching the last few weeks. So I'm excited for tomorrow. You can follow me on Twitter at DrewYoung20. Make sure to the website's www.SECSRT or www.SECSportsRoundtable.com, whichever one you want. If you are listening to anybody or you're seeing us on YouTube, make a comment. Let us know that you're listening and let us know what we need to do better. That's it.
Blair?
I'm doing good. I've enjoyed it as well, just like Drew. A lot of sports. Got 2-year-olds, so spend a lot of time, obviously, after Christmas, so the holidays were good. And, looking forward to the next couple of months. Basketball's kind of swinging in. It takes a little bit to kind of get warmed up to that. And so I'm looking forward to it tomorrow. So.
Yeah, the basketball season, it takes a little time to really want to get into that. So it's been slow for me to get into that, even as big a UK fan as I am. So I'll say that what I've been watching during the when I'm not watching sports has been Moonshiners.
Oh, it's a great one, man. Good one.
I don't get that. I don't get shows like that. And there's a marijuana show that they do as well. Like, that's illegal. How are they videotaping it?
Well, and of course, one of my friends, Kelly, was coming over saying, "Well, we looked at that too, and we Googled it. It's all fake." Well, of course, I would think there's going to have to be an element to being fake. It's a reality show. There's nothing real about a reality show. But it's still neat to watch these, backwoods individuals from Virginia talk about making moonshine. And even if they're running it, and the premise, if you've not watched it, it's on Discovery. It's on demand. It's only 6 seasons. So, I mean, it's not like you're going to devote your life to watch this show. But you look at you've got the good and the bad. You've got the ATF looking to catch the moonshiners, the regulators, and you got the moonshiners learning how to make moonshine and trying to cash in. And, the main star is trying to go legal, as they say. He's wanting to try to make legitimate moonshine. That's why he's running Shine. So it's just entertaining to watch these individuals. It stood out to me that the captain of the volunteer fire department was one of the moonshiners.
Yes, exactly. That's right.
So that's what I devoted my off season.
I know I've already said I was done, but do y'all watch the Storage Wars show?
Yeah, I've seen that a few times.
You watch that ever? They go bid on storage units, and I don't ever get it because they're like, they bid on this stuff, and they're like, oh, and then they go through it, and they're like, this is what I can sell this for, and it's like, here's somebody else's like used mattress, and they're like, I can get $100 for that. I'm like, no, you can't. You can't even like resell those really. And then they're like, I've got a end table. I can get $75 for that. I'm like, you might get $7.
There's a black market. You didn't know about the black market?
Black market for used mattresses.
Used mattresses, yeah.
Is that where you get your mattresses? I can assure you that I don't want somebody's. First of all, I don't want anybody's used mattress.
I can assure you, my wife would not allow that.
Second of all, anybody that puts that mattress in a storage unit and then doesn't have the ability to either pay the bill or just loses it. I don't want that person's mattress for sure. So, yeah, you can use all the Febreze you want. I'm not sleeping on one of those.
Any different than staying at a hotel?
Yes, because I don't think about it like that.
I'll tell you what, my consistent show is Downers, Drive-Ins, and Dives. I've been watching that forever.
But that's a staple. Yeah.
That's a good show.
It's one that I can't get enough of, and I've actually gone to several of them. It's one we went to one in Chicago. When we went up there for the Cubs game. And
that's smart. I know people that have done that.
Yeah, man. You can't. I mean, and they're all pretty unique. And
you can't go wrong. Do they have a website that tell you all the?
You just pick whatever city, and they'll tell every one of these.
Smart. I did 2 weeks of training in Atlanta.
You got one right down the street.
Yeah, Martin's. It's Martin's. If you want to sponsor it, great atmosphere.
Mississippi State boy.
It's good stuff. I don't like their barbecue though, so that kind of hurts.
What?
Unless they do if they do a whole hog, it's okay. But unless they're
regular pulled pork,
their regular pulled pork has got too much fat in it.
I'm a brisket guy myself.
Brisket's pretty good. It's hard to mess up. Brisket's a little easier. It's a little leaner. So,
but if you've got to smoke it, you really just got to go low and long on that. As long as you do that, it's good.
Their ribs are hit and miss. Sometimes they're incredible. Other times they're meh.
It's good stuff. Their wings are always good.
Yeah, they have great hamburgers too. The problem is I like most things on their menu. I just don't like their pulled pork. And if you don't like a barbecue place's pulled pork, then that's tough.
That's the staple. It's like
that's the bread and butter.
It's like the Big Mac at McDonald's. I mean, that's what they're known for. So we hope you're listening to this and finishing this up right about lunchtime tomorrow, right before the championship game. So you're nice and hungry after our conversation about all these. You can have a drink of moonshine and go eat you some barbecue of choice there.
Storage unit.
Yeah, but you can follow me on Twitter at @PShaneBailey. And with that, we're